Hi, I'm Mr. E, and welcome back to my channel. This is a little different sort of get up here, but this is something I'm working on. It's kind of a project I'm really happy with. So you'll probably see this a lot more. That being said, um, this is the second first video on my series. I did some research when I decided to create this video series in an attempt to kind of get a feel for the space that I'll be entering. Wanted to see what other creators were doing, what other people were advising, because I wanted to make sure that what I was giving you was somewhat accurate. And also, I'm not used to doing this sort of stuff, so I wanted to make sure I knew what it was about. I will say that I was a little shocked to find out that the majority of people weren't really taking you from step to step from when you would actually need to start setting things up or setting a budget. They were assuming you already had a budget. And if you're like me, you're not looking for advice saying, okay, don't even begin doing any steps for financial freedom until you have about $2,000 to $5,000 that you can put in a savings account and not touch until whatever emergency. That's good advice, but there's a lot of stuff in the beginning and in the mean that you need to get through in order to get to that situation. So yeah, so it just kind of reinforced my drive. So let's get started with the basics, and here we go. I'm not a financial advisor, right? I make this statement because I don't want you to think that my advice is 100%, and if you do it my way, you'll have no problems. That's not the case. Everybody's situation is unique. These are lessons I learned the hard way, and I'm passing it on to you, so hopefully you will learn from my mistakes and not make those same mistakes. And the very first thing that you need to do is you need to put fingers to keys or pen to paper and create your budget. Put it on a spreadsheet. I don't care. I personally like to keep a paper budget because I like to write it down. I find if I write down and go through the physical action of doing that, then I retain that information better, if that makes sense. So I say pen and paper, but spreadsheets are amazing. There's Google Docs, I think, has free spreadsheets or their version of spreadsheets of Microsoft Excel. And I'm pretty sure they have free budget templates. Now, I would recommend not going on a very complicated one that's already got a bunch of stuff lined out. Just do your simple, basic Google search, simple, basic budgeting formulas so that you can keep a running tally of what you have. And when I first got started with financial wellness, people would always tell me that my budget needs to be a monthly budget, right? I need to be able to identify the entire amount that I'll have for that month versus the entire amount of expenditures that I have for that month as well. Now, that is good in theory. However, me personally, I find that when I went on a monthly budget, it was easier for me to overspend paycheck to paycheck. And I found myself still kind of stuck in that paycheck to paycheck, even after months of doing it the full budget for the full month budget way. So what I would recommend, because it worked for me, is a more paycheck to paycheck budget. Now, I know what you're thinking. I just said paycheck to paycheck. The goal is to get away from paycheck to paycheck. And you're 100% correct. That's the goal. But if you do paycheck to paycheck budgeting, you know exactly what's coming out during that time frame. And I mean paycheck to paycheck is in like, okay, I know that my cell phone, my cable, and rent or car insurance, car payment, whatever your reoccurring charges are, okay, so I get paid on the 10th. I know that on the 12th, I'm going to have this come out unless it's a Monday, unless that's a weekend day, and then it comes out the following business day, right? So then okay, now from this time to this time, I can't spend any extra additional funds. I need to make sure these are covered, because what you're going to find is that it's going to be easier for you to have carryover money. And I know I touched on that before, But where that becomes important is when we get into the next step. So you want to identify budget or paycheck to paycheck budgeting, identify how much money comes out of your account during that paycheck period versus how much money you have in. So that'll also let you know, okay, last paycheck of the month, if my first paycheck of the month bills are a little too high, I need to make sure I have an additional amount to carry over. That seems like a no-brainer type of thing, but you'd be surprised at how many people fail at that. Because that was me. I would constantly overspend myself. Then my car payment that was due on the 28th of the month would then get pushed over into like the 5th, and then you get a late fee depending on whether or not I can't think of it. Loan holder. That's it, loan holder. Depends on who your loan holder is for your car note. So yeah, then you're able to basically get yourself in a nice, comfortable space. And that carryover money is going to become important because that's just going to build. Now, this is going to lead us into the very next step, right? And the next step is going to be establishing a bank account if you don't have one already. There's a good chance that you have a bank account in some way or another. However, if you don't work, like for instance, when I worked for a local home goods store, hardware-ish type store, I'm not going to specify the name because I don't want to give them any press. They took all my money and applied it to a debit card that was just like, since I was getting paid so little, they didn't want to deal with any kind of like bank accounts and direct deposits. It all went to this debit card that you got. All your money was there, and then it was there. Now, if that's your situation, that situation is extremely painful to stay in because it's not hard unless it's been 4 or 5 years, but it's not easy to be able to keep track of your funds with that system. So what I would recommend is if you do get it, quickly transfer it over and set up a bank account at a bank of your choice. Now, I want to interject here. Understand that banks are in the business of acquiring and keeping money, right? It's literally what they do. They want to keep all the money hoarded out and then loan it all out into high interest accounts and affluent individuals and stuff like that. So while a bank is in my opinion, part of the problem, we live in a debt-based society, which I'll go into that whole thing in a different video because that can be, I wouldn't say conspiratorial as much as I would just say it's a very large opinion piece. So we'll do that another time. Unfortunately, you need to have a bank account in this day and age, and not just a checking account. You need to have a savings account, right? So all your money will go into the checking account. That's your main in. So from there, you expend out what you need to pay your bills, and all your carryover money that's left, since you now know everything's coming, you know how much you can keep and how to spend it and not overspend yourself. Now, it's important that you also understand that carryover money is never going to be there if you budget yourself so well that you know, okay, I'm going to have $110 left over, hypothetically, $110 left over at the end of this particular pay period because my bills are light this pay cycle. So that will allow me to go buy, a 6, 12, 24 of whatever I like, go out to eat a couple extra times, buy some extra pizza, buy that fun thing on Amazon that you want. Don't do that. There'll be a time for you to do that later, but in the meantime, don't do that. Trust me. Take that extra money at the end of the month and apply it into a savings account. So 2 main reasons for that is, one, you do in fact want to build up some form of cushion, right? Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you need to have $2,000 to $5,000. I do believe that the people that are considered my betters in this particular niche type setup will tell you that you need to have enough for 3 to 6 months of capital saved up in order to pay all of your bills. Right? So if you lose your job, medical, something like that, you'll have the means to cover your finances in the meantime. That's good in theory. and it's not bad advice, and that's the goal. But realistically, if you're coming here because you're looking to see how to not live paycheck to paycheck, you're not in a position to put 2,000 to 5,000 or 3 to 6 months in a savings account. So if you get a little bit in there, that'll at least cover your main things, your food and your shelter, right? 90 days is usually what the average car company will allow you to advance out before they start repossessing. Don't quote me on that. It may differ based on what loan holder you have. And cell phones, you can go a month or two. Chances are and I'm not saying this to be mean, this is where I was at, right? Chances are you're already have experienced, I can't pay this month, I'll pay it next month. Then you got to pay double and fees and everything else. There was one point in time in my life, just to kind of interject a little bit, where I was paying my cell phone bill every 2 months because I had to pay my car payment on time, because I was end up getting behind on my car payment, and I didn't have enough money if I paid my cell phone bill to pay my car payment. So I had to make a decision based on there, and I used it to get to work every day. So that was non-negotiable. But sometimes then I had to pay, when the months where I had to pay my cell phone bill, because I didn't want to get shut off, my car payment would be late, and then I'm racking up fees that way. And that's not a fun place to be in. You know it, I know it. It's hot garbage. But anyway, savings account to start putting that rollover money in. That money will be out of sight, out of mind. The hardest part about having a savings account is not touching that savings account. You're going to see that carryover money in there. You're going to see it get up to $500, $1,000, $1,500, or even $2,000. You're like, man, new phone just dropped. About to get that phone. Don't do it. There'll be time for that. The one you have is fine. It's fine. So then you're able to then go ahead and be like, okay, that is for emergencies only. If you really want that phone, save up and buy it. You don't have to buy it as soon as it comes out, right? So apply a little bit of extra money, pinch your pennies a little bit more, put more in your savings accounts where you can. But understand that you can't just keep pulling money out of a savings account willy-nilly. If you're not familiar with that reference, that's an old person thing. There's a thing called RegD. Now, RegD means that the federal government monitors your particular savings account. Now, they're not looking at it, but banks have software that does keep track of this. If you have more, and it's different for, well, it's not different, but it's been a while since I worked at a bank, so I'm trying to remember the exact rules for it. In fact, I'm going to put a link in the description for this to RegD and all of that. And also, when you're opening up your account, the banker should tell you about RegD. If they do not, then please ask them about it, because essentially what that means is you have 6 transactions per statement cycle in a savings account. Now, I want to be clear, statement cycle is not a monthly cycle. So say your statement cycle drops on the 15th, that means from the 15th of February to the 15th of March, that's a statement cycle. And if you withdraw more than 6 transactions from your account, you're going to get a fee. It's going to be called a RegD violation. If you are a repeat offender of RegD violations, they will automatically convert your checking account to a savings account. Then you will not be able to use the money in that account to establish a new savings account. It's crazy, but if you ask your banker about it, it's 100%. It's another way that they make sure that you don't use that account for something it's not meant to use. And that's because banks have fees and everything else associated with checking accounts, because even if it says free, it's not really free. So anyway, let me get back to my point here. So now you know the very basics of getting yourself out of paycheck to paycheck, right? So just a quick recap of what this is. Yeah. Paycheck to paycheck sucks. We know that. So plan your budget paycheck to paycheck until you get it to the point where you can move that budget to month to month. That's the goal, being able to do a monthly budget. That's when you're comfortable enough, disciplined enough with your spending habits and your saving habits to where you can then afford to go month to month on a budget. It's a good feeling when you get there. trust me. Set up a checking savings account at your bank of choice, but make sure you read everything in fine detail and ask as many questions as you want. It is that banker's job to answer those questions. So if they rush you or they act any kind of way about you asking questions, remember that they get a kickback based on how many accounts they open. They actually get commission on that. Don't give it to them. If they don't want to answer your questions, there's plenty of other banks and credit unions out there that will be more than happy to take the time to explain these things to you. So don't just settle. Make sure you're comfortable with it. It's a big step, and it is a contract. You are signing a contract that you're going to adhere to these rules, and they're kind of one-sided. But anyway, like I said, another video, I'll get into the details about that. Start saving your carryover money. The additional money left over at the end of your pay period that has not been spent on bills or spent on whatever goes into that savings to slowly build up that cushion that everyone says you have to have, which you do. It just makes life easier when, I just lost. Because here's an example. I had money in my account. I started really saving up my money and started really trying hard to make sure that I had financial wellness. Lost my job. I had enough money left over within savings to where I was able to pay for my car payments at the time. In fact, I had enough to where I was actually able to go ahead and pay off the remainder of my vehicle. And depending on who you ask or depending on your situation, that may or may not be the right move for you. But for me, because I didn't have any prospects, that was the perfect option for me. I didn't have to worry about that anymore. So anyway, that's the goal for that. Yeah, that's pretty much the basics. You do that simple stuff, you'll start seeing return. And like I said, it's worth it. It's going to make you feel good. I hope you liked this video. I hope it helps. If you have any more specific questions or you want me to dive deeper into something that I kind of glossed over or something that you don't think I really expanded on as much, definitely put it in the comments. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe so you can get my new videos, as well as, now you got to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. That's how you know when I got a new video out. And if you like it enough and you think there's somebody else that might need it, send it over to them. Shoot them on your social medias, or just send it over to a buddy, or keep it as your own little thing. It's up to you. But yeah. They're going to try to take you out. Every day, the debt in this society tries to take you out. Don't let them do it. Never let them flatline you. Have a good night.